In this video, the latest finds of archaeologists are waiting for you, and at the end you will hear a touching story about a family that was discovered by archaeologists in the 20th century. Watch the video until the end, it will be interesting. Hi friend, you are on the Kyoto channel. Eyeliner and wax remover. In the UK, archaeologists have discovered hundreds of items buried with wealthy Anglo-Saxons. Experts say they found grave goods after excavating 141 burial sites in Wendover, Buckinghamshire. Artifacts ranged from jewelry and beads to swords, shields, and spears, all of which were buried with the dead. Interestingly, the resting places also contained personal hygiene kits, including earwax removers, toothpicks, and tweezers. The researchers even found brooches, hairbrushes, and a cosmetic tube that could have contained a substance used as eyeliner. This is one of the largest Anglo-Saxon burials discovered in Great Britain. Experts say the findings will help analyze what culture and society really were like in an era of undocumented times. 1,500 years ago, people in Britain stopped documenting things. Traditionally, this period was considered the Dark Age, but archaeology helps to fill these gaps. By studying the things our ancestors left in the ground, their glass, jewelry, weapons, and even their bodies, we can build a rich picture of a dynamic and vital period in our history. In total, there were 138 graves at this site, of which 141 were inhumations and 5 were cremation burials. Along with personal hygiene items, more than 2,000 beads, 89 brooches, 51 knives, 40 buckles, and 15 spearheads were found in the graves. The archaeologists noted that the items with each burial were adapted for each person, meaning the items had a specific meaning for the deceased and the mourners at the grave. Boat, 10,000 years old. The Pass canoe was found in the Netherlands during highway construction in 1955 and is the oldest boat ever discovered. According to the Drents Museum in Assen, it was made by digging out the inside of a log with an axe. Because some researchers wondered if the item could be an animal trough, even though people didn't keep animals in the Netherlands at the time, the museum created a replica and took it out onto the water, proving it could float. Early medieval cemetery discovered. Archaeologists in Germany have discovered 110 graves dating back to the 6th and 7th centuries. Among the finds are gold and bronze objects, as well as a headless horse. Early medieval burials have been found in the city of Knittlingen in southwestern Germany. Most of the 110 graves were buried in rows, but some of the elite were buried in a round pit. Grave structures ranged from simple burials to wooden burial chambers. Only the last pieces of wood have survived. Some of the dead were buried in wooden coffins. Ceramic vessels and bronze bowls were also added to the graves of men and women, which probably contained food. Animal bones and eggshells were found in them. The finds give an idea of the social status of the dead. Some of the male graves identified the deceased as cavalrymen. A headless horse was buried next to one of these burials. As would be expected due to Knittlingen's location in the fertile landscape of old settlements, research has also unearthed isolated prehistoric, i.e. Stone Age, finds. Several ceramic fragments that have been discovered date from the Neolithic period from about 5,000 to 4,500 BC. The mythical giant. The Cardiff Giant, a supposed petrified man 10 feet tall, was discovered in 1869 by workers digging a well in Cardiff, New York. The giant was actually a fake, made from a block of gypsum. It was taken to a farm in Cardiff where it was buried for a year before being discovered by workers. The idea for the giant was George Hull's, who wanted to prove the public's naivety and exploit people's religious beliefs about giant men mentioned in the Bible. After the giant was found, it became the subject of mass attention, with spectators paying to see it. Barnum, a famous showman, offered to buy the giant but was refused. He then created his own replica and claimed that his version was genuine and the original was a fake. In 1870, both giants were found to be fakes, but the Cardiff Giant went down in history as one of the greatest hoaxes of the 19th century. The Great Flood, myth or catastrophe? The story of the Great Flood is one of the most universal in world culture. It is known not only from the Bible, where Noah builds an ark, but also from the Sumerian epic about Ziusudra, the Babylonian story of Utnapishtim, the Indian myth of Manu, the Greek story of Deucalion, Chinese chronicles, legends of the American Indians, and even Arctic tales. Such a coincidence is almost impossible to consider accidental. This makes you wonder, maybe the flood really happened, and if so, when? One of the most convincing hypotheses suggests an event about 7,600 years ago. Then, due to a sharp rise in the level of the world ocean, salt water gushed through the Bosphorus into the Black Sea lowland. Geologists claim that the water level rose by 140 meters, flooding huge territories. What used to be fertile land became a sea. This event could really look like the end of the world for the peoples of that era. But was it a global flood? Probably not. However, for specific people living in river floodplains, in lowlands, near the coasts, this was a global catastrophe. Imagine, water takes everything. A house, cattle, land, village, ancestors. People save themselves on rafts, go to the mountains. Centuries later, the memory of what happened turns into a myth, universal and terrible. It amazes me how this ancient fear still lives in us. Even in the 21st century, we are afraid of floods. Talk about a climate catastrophe, as if we genetically remember how the world once really drowned. And perhaps this is not just a myth, it is a warning. Silver Valkyrie. In the Danish village of Herby, during a routine archaeological survey, a figurine was found. Small, only 3.5 centimeters, made of silver. But it is immediately obvious that it is not accidental. A woman with a sword. In one hand is a round shield, the other is extended downwards. A dress with thin folds, hair pulled into a bun. The face is concentrated. Not a deity, not a decoration, not a toy. She is armed. The find dates back to about 800, and it is the first of its kind found in Scandinavia. Scientists initially decided that this was a mythical Valkyrie, a messenger of the gods, but then other versions began to appear. Maybe this is not a spirit at all, but a person. Viking sagas mention women who fought. They were skalds, warriors, seers. Some burials with weapons actually belonged to women, which is confirmed by DNA analysis. The figurine could have been part of a ritual staff, or a personal talisman, or a picture of a specific woman, one who was respected and feared. In any case, the image of a strong, armed woman in the Viking Age is not fiction. It is reality, simply hidden for a long time under layers of convenient ideas. She says nothing, but her pose, her shield, her sword, they have already said everything. Sometimes it seems like all of this is just facts. Bones, stones, buildings, chemical formulas in the atmosphere of a distant planet. But the longer you watch, the more clearly you understand all of this is about us, about fear, about memory, about loneliness, about what we hide. Archaeology does not tell us what history was. It shows that it was there at all, and each layer has its own face. The mystery of the Herculanium scroll. Thanks to artificial intelligence and advanced X-ray technology, scientists have managed to decipher the text of one of the ancient Herculanium scrolls for the first time. These unique artifacts, which survived the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, remained a mystery for almost 2,000 years. The scrolls were discovered in the 1750s among the ruins of a Roman villa. However, after the disaster, they turned into charred, fragile rolls that cannot be unrolled without breaking. Most of them are stored in the National Library of Naples, and a few copies are in Oxford. In 2023, the Vesuvius Challenge was launched to find technologies to decipher these texts. Recently, researchers announced a major breakthrough. Using high-energy X-ray scanning and AI algorithms, they managed to create the first image of the inside of the Oxford Scroll. Scientists have already identified several words, one of which is the Greek for disgust. Although the text is still fragmentary, the method continues to improve. There are more than 1,000 such scrolls in Naples, and now researchers have hope of deciphering them. The Galloway Horde and another exciting discovery. A rare rock crystal jar found wrapped in cloth as part of the Galloway Horde, which dates from around 900, has been preserved and has a Latin inscription written in gold. The inscription says that the jug was made for a bishop named Hygd. The Galloway Horde is the richest collection of rare and unique Viking Age items ever found in the British Isles. It was discovered in 2014 and acquired by the National Museums of Scotland in 2017. The hoard includes more than 100 items such as brooches, ingots, glass beads, a Christian cross, and a silver vessel. Even some of the fabrics with which the materials were originally wrapped have been preserved. It is believed that a crystal jug about 5 centimeters high, resembling a richly decorated perfume bottle, served a church function. Now it has been carefully separated from the packaging. The Latin inscription on the base, written in gold letters, translates as "Bishop Hegel ordered me to make me." The inscription is in Latin, which in those days was the universal language of the Western Church. From the records of that period, we know that there were several clerics named Hegwald in early medieval Northumbria. Some studies of the artifact included a 3D X-ray image. The scan was done in collaboration with the British Museum, allowing the packaged object to be examined without damaging it. Rock crystal is unusual in itself. It is one of those materials that were highly valued in the ancient world for its transparency and translucency, which is why it is associated with purity. The gold almost immortalizes it. It has become a kind of relic. Evidence of the first people in Britain. At one of the oldest Paleolithic sites in northern Europe, experts have found evidence that the city on the outskirts of Kent was home to Homo heidelbergensis. The ancestor of the Neanderthals, Homo heidelbergensis, was thought to have occupied Britain between 560,000 and 620,000 years ago, when it was not yet an island and still connected to the European continent. Findings of researchers can also testify to the oldest processing of animal skins in prehistoric Europe. The Fordwich site, located in an ancient riverbed, was first discovered as early as the 1920s. At that time, local workers discovered artifacts of stone tools known as hand axes. But a new excavation team led by the University of Cambridge's Department of Archaeology has not only unearthed new flint artifacts and the first scrapers ever found there, but has also managed to figure out their approximate age. The researchers used a modern dating technique known as infrared radiofluorescence. The artifacts are exactly where the ancient river placed them, which means that we can say with certainty that they were made before the river moved to another part of the valley. Lomqui stone tools. It is truly exciting and very touching to be the first to pick up a stone artifact since its original creator laid it on the ground millions of years ago. Who this original creator is remains unknown. Lomqui tools were created for forging and cutting long before the genus Homo was born, and this is about 2.8 million years ago. Traditional history and human evolution studies suggest that the origin of stone tools by our ancestors was associated with the emergence of the genus Homo, and that this technological development was associated with climate change and the spread of savannas. The discovery by the West Turkana Archaeological Project team of tools 500,000 years older than the earliest known Homo fossils suggests that it is possible that other earlier hominids learned to make tools, or that some as yet unknown members of the Homo genus arose much earlier than we thought. What caused the Great Migration of Peoples? 4th to 5th centuries AD, the map of Europe begins to fall apart. Waves of settlers descend on the Roman Empire. Visigoths, Huns, Vandals, Alans, Franks. The great empire, which had maintained order for centuries, collapses before our eyes. What would later be called the Middle Ages begins, and with it, the Age of Fog. What triggered this movement of peoples? The official version is a combination of factors: climate cooling, crop failures, population growth, internal conflicts. New tribes were looking for land, resources, security. But why did it all happen at the same time all over Eurasia? Why did the Germans, Slavs, and steppe dwellers all start moving? What was the trigger? There is a theory that it all started with the Huns, a military people from Central Asia who, like a chain reaction, pushed other tribes to the west. Other researchers believe that it goes deeper. Perhaps an ecological catastrophe occurred in Asia, which caused entire cultures to be uprooted. There is even a suggestion that changes in the Earth's magnetic field could have affected animal migrations, and people followed them. The Romans could not withstand the onslaught. Their roads, walls, and legions could not stop those who came not so much to fight as to survive. The empire disappeared, and another Europe arose in its place, feudal, religious, fragmented. But without this migration, there would be no France, Germany, or Russia. We literally live on the ruins of Rome and on the bones of that ancient storm. Road underwater. When diving in the Hawaiian Islands, you expect to find many things: lava, craters, rare corals, but not a road, and certainly not like this. At the depths near an underwater volcano, divers noticed a strange area. Perfectly straight stone slabs, yellow in color, laid out in a row. The surface is like a sidewalk. The structure is like masonry. The angles between the slabs are too precise to be random. All this did not look like a geological formation, but like a trace of something artificial. The video quickly spread across the internet. The comments are standard. Atlantis, ancient path, aliens. But the researchers themselves were puzzled. They did not find signs of human intervention in the area, but they could not immediately explain its origin. Later, geologists got involved. According to their version, this is the result of volcanic activity. Basaltic lava quickly cooled and cracked under the pressure of water, created polygonal faults. The structure we perceive as a road is actually a natural formation, but the way it looks is confusing because it's too recognizable. We're used to nature creating chaos, and here there's order. You look at these slabs and can't shake the feeling that someone has already been here. Not you first, not the fish. Someone. Maybe it's just an optical illusion or an effect of shapes, but there's a line where science gives an answer, and you still continue to doubt. The legendary golden horse. Not long ago, the news that the legendary golden horse of King Mithridates Eupator was allegedly found near Anapa, Russia, was spreading across social networks. It is noteworthy that similar messages had already appeared in 2021, turning out to be an April Fool's joke. Now, excavations underway in the area of the village of Anapskaya have once again forced people to discuss this story. During rescue operations at a site for a future kindergarten, archaeologists discovered a burial ground about 2,000 years old. In one of the burials, they found not only human remains, but also horses. In others, horse skeletons, glass and ceramic dishes, various beads, as well as weapons and harnesses. Items, including beads made of amber, carnelian, and faience, indicate the connections of local tribes with the ancient world. Among the finds was a scarab, a symbol of rebirth among the ancient Egyptians. Of particular interest were the glass vessels, which were widespread throughout the periphery of the Roman Empire thanks to the improvement of blowing techniques. Despite the excitement, there is no direct evidence that this is indeed the golden horse of Mithridates. Scientists emphasize that legends easily grow, and the rich burial of a noble person may well acquire fantastic features over time. Discovery rewrites alcohol history. The process of distilling alcohol goes back much further than previously thought. New excavations at the tomb of Liu He, the 9th emperor of the Western Han Dynasty, have revealed that distillation was already known in China 2,000 years ago. Scientists have found a bronze vessel called a heavenly pot, which served as a key part of a wine distillation device. Previously, historical texts only pointed to the emergence of such technologies during the Yuan dynasty, that is, 1,000 years later. Despite his short reign, Liu He left behind an impressive legacy. In addition to the distiller itself, the oldest painting of Confucius was found in his tomb, as well as thousands of pieces of armor made of iron, copper, and lacquered leather. All this testifies to the high level of craftsmanship of the Western Han era. An experiment with a replica of the bronze vessel showed a distillation efficiency of over 70% while preserving the taste and aroma of the drink. Initially thought to have been used for perfume essences or medicine, it is now clear that its primary purpose was alcohol production. The findings provide insight into the evolution of brewing and alcohol practices, complementing historical records and revealing the potential of early Chinese inventors. Lost 2,000-year-old ancient city of Basania. Polish archaeologists may have discovered the 2,000-year-old lost city of Basania in Albania. Archaeologists from the University of Warsaw have discovered the remains of two large ancient stone structures on a hilltop near Shkodra in Albania. A few years ago, it was believed that only natural rock remains existed here. According to researchers, this is probably Basania, a city described by the Roman historian Livy in the context of the battles of the Roman troops with the last king of Illyria, Gentius. In May 2018, archaeologists unearthed only part of the walls and the door. The open gates were accompanied by two bastions, to which powerful defensive walls over 3 meters wide led. Their outer parts were made of profiled stone blocks. The space between them was filled with small stones and earth. According to researchers, this type of construction is typical for Hellenistic defensive structures. This dating is also confirmed by objects found by archaeologists near the walls, coins and fragments of ceramic vessels of the 4th to 1st centuries BC. This means that the city functioned during the Illyrian kingdom, which ceased to exist at the turn of the millennium after the Roman invasion. The city was destroyed over the years and its walls rolled down the slopes. It also served as a local quarry. Many of the surrounding houses are built from large blocks carved from archaeological sites. Despite erosion and human activity in the ancient city, archaeologists were lucky enough to find fragments of ancient pottery. Thanks to their analysis, it was found that the hill was inhabited as early as the 2nd millennium BC. Stone tools in America. At the Buttermilk Creek Archaeological Site in Central Texas, Michael R. Waters, director of the Center for Early American Studies at Texas A&M University, and his team found projectile points, blades, and other tools that date beyond time. Researchers have long believed that humans migrated to North America after crossing the Bering Strait from Siberia at the end of the last ice age. It is the oldest archaeological site in North America. This proves that people passed the Bering Strait region before the ice receded. They probably traveled south along the west coast, possibly by boat, to reach the mainland of North and South America and spread across the continents. Tomb of a 10th century warrior in Poland. The remains of a warrior buried at the end of the 10th century in an earthen mausoleum were discovered in the village of Bodzia in central Poland. According to the researchers, this man had an elite status and spent most of his life in Scandinavia. The necropolis dates back to the end of the 10th and the first half of the 11th century and consists of elite burials of several dozen people. Evidence of this is the rich equipment of the graves. Andrzej Buko, an archaeologist and professor at the University of Warsaw, offers a new interpretation of the origin of this necropolis. In his opinion, initially it was not a cemetery, but a single grave, the mausoleum of a prominent representative of the elite Mieszko I, the ruler of Poland from 960 to 992. The mausoleum was built in the form of a large earthen burial chamber with a diameter of about 3 meters. The barrow was crowned with a stele. The grave was fenced with a rectangular palisade. The entrance to the tomb was from the west. The body of the deceased, a man of 35 to 45 years old, was placed in a wooden coffin. According to Buko, the deceased received numerous gifts on his last journey. Fragments of clothes in the form of linen fabric have been preserved, as well as iron fittings of a knight's belt, a knife and a leather sheath, and coins, one coinage from Saxony, the other from the Czech Republic. Analysis of strontium isotopes contained in the deceased's teeth indicates that he was born in northern Poland, but he was buried according to foreign rites. In addition, people, probably of Scandinavian origin, were later buried in nearby graves. Archaeologists believe that although the deceased, buried in the grave of the mausoleum, was born in Poland, he spent a significant part of his life in Scandinavia. There he rose to a high position in the social hierarchy. At some point in his life, he returned to his homeland. Bloody footprints of Kyoto castles. There is one strange detail in Japanese castles of the 16th century that tourists rarely notice. On some wooden floors, there are dark stains, not paint, not drawings. These are real imprints of human bodies left after samurai committed suicide, and they are still visible. Such traces remained, for example, in Fushimi Castle near Kyoto. In 1600, during one of the sieges, several dozen samurai committed suicide to avoid being captured. The blood was absorbed into the wood, and then the panels on which their silhouettes remained were removed and transferred to other temples. As a tribute to the fallen, now they are called Yurei Ita, cursed boards. But formally there is no mysticism, just memory, literally absorbed into the floor. In the photographs, you can see how the outlines of bodies are imprinted on the floor, the contours of hands, heads, hips. It was as if people had laid down and disappeared, leaving only a shadow behind them. Egypt and the swastika. The more I studied the archives about the Ahnenerbe, the clearer it became. It was important for the Nazis not just to find ancient artifacts. They needed to inscribe themselves in the great past, to create a line where the Aryans are not just a people, but direct heirs of the most ancient civilizations. Egypt occupied a special place in this system, not because of the pyramids and mummies, but because of the symbols and rituals. They called the swastika the solar cross. For them, it was not just a sign, it was a code. The swastika is indeed found in the cultures of India, Tibet, China, and in Egypt, at least in the form of indirect symbolism. The movement of the sun, the four directions, the cult of Ra, they found confirmation of their ideas in this. Sometimes far-fetched, sometimes very convincing. Before the war, some researchers associated with the Ahnenerbe actually visited Egypt. Unofficially, they were interested in ancient books, funeral rituals, ideas about the afterlife, the way the Egyptians linked power, magic, and order. The Nazis perceived it as a system, not a religion, but a control mechanism, as if the ancients knew something that had been forgotten, and they came to restore it. I looked at photographs from those expeditions, people in SS uniforms standing by temples, stone bas-reliefs decorated with runes. It was not just imitation, it was an attempt to create their own religion, new, but based on symbols that inspire power. When Hitler spoke of returning to the past, he did not mean Prussia. He looked further, into millennia, into civilizations that disappeared but left a trace, and he wanted this trace to lead to them. The Scariest Tribe. Traveler and blogger Daniel Pinto caused quite a shock when he posted a video of the Wai tribe from Papua New Guinea. In the video, which has collected more than 17 million views, he shows an encounter with silent tribesmen guarding a sacred waterfall. The Wai people wear costumes made of mud and clay, and their masks resemble spiritual birds with long noses and menacing expressions. They protect the waterfall from strangers, and they are quite scary. However, viewers have doubted the authenticity of the video. Some commenters claim that the Scariest Tribe would not let a blogger so close. Others joke that their costumes look like fashionable outfits. Despite the controversy, the video has attracted tourists to the region. Travel agencies now list Wai as a tourist destination, offering guests eco-lodges and an introduction to the tribe's culture. What do you think? Is this tribe real, or is it really another way to attract naive tourists? Write your opinion in the comments under the video. $1 million. Who will decipher the ancient script? The script of the ancient Indus Valley civilization remains unsolved to this day. Recently, Indian official Muthuval Karunanidhi Stalin offered $1 million for their decipherment. According to Hindustan Times, this impressive reward should inspire archaeologists, linguists, and cryptographers. The head of the state of Tamil Nadu recalled that after a century of research, no one has made any progress in understanding these mysterious signs, supposedly related to the Tamil language. The strange symbols of the Indus civilization, found back in the 1920s by Sir John Marshall, remain an unsolved mystery. It was then that Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were excavated, but the key to their script has still not been found. Golden bead. A tiny golden bead discovered in Bulgaria is believed to be the oldest example of a worked gold object ever discovered. She is 6,500 years old. It is only 1/8 of an inch in diameter and was found at a site called Tel Unazi, where researchers also found hundreds of ceramic bird figurines that could have been used in a religious ceremony. The area was home to the Balkan civilization of the Copper Age, where metal production was developed and the people had extensive trading networks. The death of a young family in an earthquake. Sometimes, when archaeologists find the remains of victims of natural disasters, their photographs suddenly touch our hardened hearts, as if we knew these people. Is it because they were not much different from you and me? Just as you and I, they enjoyed life, took care of children and loved ones, and at the most terrible moment in the face of already inevitable death, they sometimes had only one desire: to protect their loved ones. This is a photograph of the remains of a young family who died in their bed. The mother covers the child with her hand. The father tries to cover both of them with his body. They died in the early morning of July 21st, 365 AD. The child is 1.5 years old. The mother is about 19 to 20 years old. The father is 25 to 35. How and why did they die? The Mediterranean region has known quite a few natural disasters, of which the most destructive was the explosion of the Thera volcano, Santorini Island, around 1500 BC, which put an end to the power of the Minoan civilization. Perhaps the legend of the death of Atlantis is associated with this event. Unfortunately, there is no information about this catastrophe in written sources. Those who could write died, and those who survived certainly had no time for it. The events of 365 AD made a huge impression on contemporaries, much more than the death of Pompeii and Herculanium, and the victims were no longer thousands, as in the death of two cities, but tens or even hundreds of thousands. The epicenter of the earthquake is at the very edge of the eastern coast of the island of Crete. There is no written evidence of the death of the city of Kurion, but in 1934, the earthquake house was found here, in which, during subsequent excavations, the remains of 7 people were found, including our young family. The father managed to cover the mother with his body, hugging the crying child, trying to protect them from stones falling from above. Nobody managed to escape. Too many people died that morning in the city because no one came to dig them up. Not the next day, not a week later, not a month later. They lay there for 16.5 centuries until archaeologists found the house. The family was not rich, but the house is very solid. By the time of destruction, it had stood for at least a couple of centuries. The young woman had a simple flat brooch around her neck, made of semi-precious or rather ornamental stone. The father of the family found 2 rings, 1 iron and an inexpensive bronze ring. The mother covered the child who hugged her, and the father tried to protect them both with his body. Tell me, dear viewers, what is this, if not love? Write your comments under the video and share it with your friends. Thanks for your views. Bye, everyone.